I know everything concerns you, and for months you've talked about, you pounded home about not taking anything for granted. And there comes a point in time, obviously, where you just get on the field and see what happens. How would you gauge pooling the off-season, the fall camp, pooling all that together? How would you gauge the readiness and preparedness for this team moving forward in this new chapter?
I think we're reasonably on track. You know, the effort has been good during this period of time. It goes fast. You know, there are days that everything doesn't go exactly like you want it to. That's most days. But by the same token, as I said, I think the effort is there. I think the execution is still in the polished stage. But you know, it's a long season. We take it one game at a time. But each, you know, becoming effective at the fundamentals and the execution of what your assignments are is something that's ongoing, quite obviously. And you know, we just aren't quite there yet as far as that part goes. But like I said, I'm comfortable with the effort so far.
Coach, with that theme that we've talked about during the offseason about the importance of having that experienced quarterback coming back, the junior to senior season, you look back and there's a noticeable trend that I saw with May, Bishop, Beasley, Roberson, and Klein. And that was that in the season opener of their senior campaign, I mean, they came out and they have a combined 24 touchdowns in those teams with only 4 team turnovers. What have you maybe seen among this group, maybe that it factor, that they've been able to demonstrate that they're more comfortable with Jake and maybe able to execute and be efficient?
Is there a time limit on him? Where'd you get that chain, by the way?
My wife.
Your wife, okay.
The effectiveness and comfort level and efficiency that maybe this team has demonstrated with a returning quarterback in Jake.
Well, I think they have confidence in Jake. I think Jake has said on numerous occasions that he feels more comfortable and feels like he gets it a little bit better, and that should go with experience. I think all the youngsters that you mentioned, and then it's true not just the quarterback spot, it's true across the board. You know, it only makes sense that with years experience under your belt that you should be an improved player, and you should have greater confidence in your capabilities, and that should show. And consequently, your teammates should identify with that as well. I mean, as I said, it's not just Jake. I mean, you know, you take anybody you want to, but you take a B.J. Finney, and you know, all the players respond to B.J. and anticipate and expect that he, you know, is working diligently to become better, and that he will be better. You know, just through the experience.
Go ahead, Kenny. You listed Charles Jones as your starting running back, but was the competition for that as strong as you would like, and what maybe put him over the top?
Well, it was, and whether or not that holds true remains to be seen. You know, it's not written in stone right now. So it's still competitive, will remain competitive throughout the rest of, or a good portion of the week anyway, probably today and tomorrow. And if there is a change, you know, we'll identify that. But it's not, as I said, it's not written in stone.
Coach, coming off a year when you did lose your opening game, what would you say are some of the main points you're emphasizing with the guys right now to correct that and make sure it doesn't happen this season?
Well, I think same thing we always talk about. Number one is, you know, not taking anything for granted. You know, not taking their own performance for granted, not taking their improvement for granted, not taking the opponent for granted, and the other aspect is, you know, it's just continued improvement. It's not a week of preparation that you plateau in your improvement. That, you know, that's got to be ongoing throughout the course of the year. So I would say number one, in simplicity, number one is don't take any of that for granted, and number two, keep getting better. You know, get better today, and so on. And that's virtually what we talk about.
can you kind of talk about what you've seen maybe out of Jack Cantelli so far going into this year, and then obviously the advantages of having a returning kicker?
Well, it's good having a returning kicker when they go through the uprights. And, Jack is, he's a very conscientious young man. I appreciate that a great deal. It's important to him. He makes it important to him. I think he's enhancing his range a little bit right now. Consistency is still growing. That's a major factor for a place kicker, but it's gotten better as we've gone through the workouts. Pardon me.
Coach, are there any, you released a depth chart, are you happy with the initial depth charts that you released? I mean, or were you expecting maybe some guys to step up a little bit more? Or, kind of give a gauge on your comfort level with the two deep right now.
Well, I expect everybody to step up more, regardless of whether they're number one or number two on the depth chart. I'm not disappointed in the depth chart. Do I want them all to be better? Yes. Do I want it to remain competitive or create a competitive environment at certain positions? Yes. And some of that is there, and some of it isn't.
In regards to maybe some of those late arrival junior college players, none of them have been listed right now. Is there a chance that they maybe crack the two deep at some point, or are they kind of a little bit, a couple steps behind some of those other guys?
Well, obviously, if you come in after, a camp has started and you missed all of the summer workout, you missed all the spring workouts, it's not an easy task to, get yourself on the depth chart to where you'd like to be. But we see promise, and we see, what you indicated is a possibility, good possibility, I think. When that would take place or how quickly that would take place remains to be seen. That's up to them.
Coach, how happy have you been with the competition on the offensive line, or what has that been like?
We need more. It is, I like the fact that our number ones have tried to enhance the competitive environment. In other words, trying to help bring the twos along. I think, as I indicated, I think for the most part the effort has been good. I don't think we're as deep right now as I want us to be. You'd like to be. I can't remember in the years we've been here that we've ever had 10 guys that we've said, okay, they're interchangeable. That hasn't been the case. Normally we have maybe 8. And right now we're reasonably close to that, but not there yet. As far as overall depth, eight players that you could implement in a game plan. And our players are, one thing we do is and always have been, is our players have versatility to play at a variety of different positions. They can play across the board for the most part.
And then also with Dalvin Warmack, has he made a decision on redshirting or not?
At this point in time, he will probably redshirt.
Raise your hand for questions. Here, go ahead.
Speaking of freshman coach, Elijah Lee's on the depth chart at outside linebacker. Can you talk about his progress and some of the other young guys that Jordan Willis now, some of the returning starter at defensive end?
Well, Elijah and Jordan, there's some similarities there. One's older than the other and all, more experience, but, both of them play hard. That's what I appreciate. They're going to give their best effort all the time, every time. Jordan has really just, he's one of those guys that's kind of the epitome of daily improvement, just gets himself a little bit better day in and day out. Elijah, it's kind of new to him, but he's trying to experience that and has made some headway, but pretty good athlete, runs well, like both of them.
You mentioned that the running back situation is temporary for now, but is there something that gives Charles the nod right now as a starter?
Is there something that gives him the nod?
Gives him the nod specifically that you've seen so far?
Well, I mean, he's at the top of the list. He may not be alone at the top of the list right now, and obviously isn't. But I think he's one of those young guys. I've seen the improvement come. It's important for our backs to be versatile, to be able to handle all aspects of the game, and obviously be able to run the ball well and with some explosiveness, and to be able to block well, and to be able to be active in the passing game as a receiver. And I think he's made improvement in all three of those areas. Yeah. DeMarcus would be, a contender as well, as in contention for that. And DeMarcus has made improvement in those areas as well. So they're getting better at being multifaceted running backs.
Bill, you've got a couple of Topeka, or guys from the Topeka area that are on your 2D, Will Geary and Trent Hanking in particular. Can you just talk a little bit about what you've seen in them this month and what's impressed you?
Well, both of them really have, just continue to work diligently, continue to make improvement, practice hard, play hard. Will's on the, he's right there. He's on the verge of, he'll get active in a rotation with our inside front two. But Prince of a guy, and just rolls the sleeves up, and a guy that everybody ought to be proud of. Trent, is kind of a little bit of a newcomer also, and he's kind of experiencing things, but he manages to do exactly that. He works at it. He gets a little bit better all the time. He's learning more and more and more about the position he plays. I think, all of us feel comfortable that he's going to be a fine player. How quickly that materializes remains to be seen.
Coach, throughout the last month or so, obviously you've been focused on making your team better, and I'm curious, as the season opener approaches, at what point in time do you typically shift your focus from your team to the opponent for this week, and what do you know about Stephen F. Austin?
Well, that kind of goes with the territory. You have actually for the first ball game, you have all the time you want in order to prepare for that opponent. But, we normally get started. In other words, we give our scout reports on Sunday, so that's a day earlier than what we might normally do that. We've had a little bit of repetition on Stephen F. Austin on Saturday and on Friday of this past week. Previous to that, we spent some preparation time on other opponents as well. Always do that. Stephen F. Austin, one is, last year, even though there was a coaching change, you look at the personnel, this was an offensive football team last year that led the nation, in their division in total offense. Very productive, very strong in the passing game. New quarterback who's has had some success transferring before the transfer. I think running back they like, Johnson is number 6. Is a powerful runner. He's about 225 to right in that vicinity, and runs extremely hard. 1,000-yard rusher. All the receivers back, I can't quote the numbers to you, but I think they have 4 receivers that had over 700 yards receiving last year. Had a 1,000-yard rusher, one at 900 something, one at 8 something, one at 7 something. So they've got the pieces, I think, in place coming back. From a defensive standpoint, they were at the other end of the spectrum last year, on defense. But everything that comes out of their practice reviews indicates that they are, a vastly improved defensive football team. And as you go through and look at their depth chart, you'll see, on their defensive depth chart, I think they have 5 transfers from major schools, Texas A&M, Baylor, KU, Central Florida, I think, Utah. But, they've got a lot of, transplants that are there right now that certainly, formidable and vastly improved from a defensive standpoint. Kicker is on track to, break their record in terms of points scored. So he's been, proficient as a place kicker. So, on and on. Is that good enough?
You said yesterday you'd probably give more than one running back a shot in this first game. Is that something you want to do as the season goes on, split carries there, or would you rather have one guy you can lean on most of the time?
Well, and it kind of depends. I think right now, just out of the norm, you probably rather have, one guy do it. That may or may not pan out. The two that I mentioned now, Jarvis Leverett is going to fit into the mix. I mentioned Judah Jones, as well. So it's not really two people. Now we're not going to play. We're not going to rotate four guys in there. I can assure you that. We're not going to rotate three guys in there. But we might have pause and reason to utilize two guys. Like I said, is it better that way? Could be, but if just off the top of my head, my preference would be to have one.
And I also wanted to ask your thoughts on Caleb Pruitt. He seems like he, to get on the 2 deep, did something good in the preseason camp. What did you like most about his game?
Well, he's athletic. He runs well. He's a bright young guy, picks things up very, very quickly. See, he got invested in the system and schematically very quickly, and his retention rate is very good, even though there's so much thrown at you during the course of the first 3 weeks. So, all that put together, he's rapidly moved himself beyond being a first-term guy. He's playing like he's got some experience here.
If I'm looking at this right, I think I counted 25 seniors and juniors on your 2 deep, and 19 that were sophomores, redshirt freshmen, or true freshmen. And you talk about quality competition and quality depth and developing that. Obviously, these guys probably wouldn't be on unless they were talented. What does that speak to the young talent that this squad possesses right now?
Well, I don't know what it says to them other than, you always have a chance. Got to compete, and if you let, if you let a year pass you by without trying to improve your capabilities, then you probably fall further behind. But you'd have to ask them what that means to them. I don't know.
How big of a theme was last year's season opening loss? I mean, do you want to drive that point home and get them prepared, or you want them to kind of put it behind them and not dwell on that?
Well, I've certainly made the point on numerous occasions, but it's not anything that that I'm going to dwell on. It still boils down to part of what I mentioned a little bit earlier. Part of taking things for granted, so to speak. Part of it is not always the opponent. Sometimes it's just your own personal performance level, and that's always a concern. That sometimes you just labor under the assumption that you're going to do what you do, and that doesn't happen that way. Life doesn't happen that way, and so it still goes. It goes back. It backtracks to the improvement level. Day in and day out. I'm more invested in that than I am anything else, but it is important, and the players have assured me that they feel like they have not taken this opening ball game or their performance level or anything else for granted. I mean, that's the feeling of our players right now.
Coach, Joe Huebner is listed as your backup quarterback. What has Joe done to win that battle for the backup job? And now that he's on the depth chart, is this moving closer to being on scholarship instead of being walk-on?
He is on scholarship, and he has earned it, and he has really done extremely well in camp now that he's had the opportunity to, perform a great deal of consistency. By that I mean get on the field and get reps with the ones and the twos, and he's done a nice job with it. He has a very, very good understanding of what our offense is all about. Manages, the offense extremely well. Is throwing the ball well, get the ball downfield. He's got a nice, strong arm. Still, both of them still make some mistakes, but he just keeps, making that improvement. He levels off a little bit, but right after that, he's taken some steps forward. He can run with football. He's really done a nice job. He's caught a lot of he's caught eyes during the course of the 2 days.
Coach, kind of piggybacking off the nothing for granted about the first game of last year, but do you see that same sense of focus with this group as you did with the one that you were pleased with heading into the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl? I mean, is it not maybe the same, is it similar?
No, it's moving toward in that direction. We'll see when we get into the season, but I'm not uncomfortable with with the focus. I'm not uncomfortable with the effort. Execution has to improve. Schematically, we have to get better, but aside from that, and they're not where we were at the end of the season in that respect, but they are moving in that direction, which is positive to me.
And also a guy in Will Davis, a guy that had a pretty fine high school career and just seemingly got a little bit overlooked. What have you seen from him through the spring, summer, and camp that just allowed him to make you feel comfortable at that Mike spot?
Well, he's a tough young guy. He's a young guy that is intelligent about the game. He learns the system extremely well. He's a very responsible young guy. You got to have people at that position that are, that get where they need to be, doing what they need to be doing. That's a discipline aspect of it, self-discipline, and he has that. You don't get Will out of position, very often. He's always going to give you the best effort that he has. He's not afraid to hit you. So he's what you're looking for there.
You mentioned that you've seen some scouting reports from some other opponents, and I was curious if having a conference game in week 2 has shifted your planning at all as the season begins, or just how do you feel about that being the case? Because I know it's something that isn't a norm for you guys as the season begins, thinking that early.
Well, it isn't. That's a whole other story, but it really hasn't altered to any great extent. Have we done some preparation for Iowa State? Yes, we have. But every year, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, normally 7 or 8 days before the first ball game, that's where our focus is. And the week prior to that, we spend some time on probably the first 4 opponents, each one, and hopefully we can retain that, what we worked on. So no, it's not any different than it has been. That's not taking them for lightly. It's just, that would be senseless to begin with, but it's just the norm for us, I think, more than anything else.
Coach, excuse me, I was curious about your thoughts on the camp that Andre Davis has had, and for that matter, just your overall thoughts on the receiving corps and how they've done this fall.
Well, they collectively, and this, I think they've kind of gone the way Andre has. So I can answer the question in one swoop. What's that term? Felt swoop. Okay, I've got to practice that. But they probably collectively, and when I say collectively, maybe those guys that would make up the, if you put 4 on the field, would make up that group. You've got a couple of guys that have the experience here and really have performed well during the camp, met expectations. The others, which we have probably 4 in that group, really just from the very beginning, really improved their their play and their understanding and their execution, and then it got to a point where it really kind of started to fall off, and we became very inconsistent with that group, and now they're starting to regain that level of performance. Andre follows suit with that. I mean, he was very impressive at the outset of the camp, and which tells you that he's very, very capable. And then his performance level slipped off a little bit, and now it's, you know, starting back up. So still have a little ways to go, but they're making headway. They're back on track. Let me put it that way.
Coach, along those same lines, Deontay Burton, the wide receiver a year ago compared to now, what has he done? And you were asked earlier about the 4 JUCO players that got here late. Do you anticipate any of them or none of them playing on Saturday?
I would imagine, you know, some of them will get on the field. You know, I can't tell you how often or how much, and can't tell you for certain that they will. But the anticipation is that they're that we would have the opportunity to put them on the field. What was the other? Deontay. Yeah, he's made headway. I mean, he just has more experience. He understands the system a little bit better. He has more opportunities now to work with Jake, and so Jake helps him a great deal. The other receivers, Curry and Locke, you know, help him out a great deal, and so he's, you know, he's really developing into the system. He'd probably be our number 3 guy right now.
You mentioned Judah Jones has played some at running back, but you also listed him at receiver. How is he splitting that time, and are you just kind of moving him around in the offense, or what kind of is his role, I guess? Well,
his role will be whatever we decide for him to do, but he's right now he'll do both, and you know, I don't think that's. You know, he's a young pup, not too much to ask of him. He's got obviously has some talents, or we wouldn't be doing that. His retention level seems to be good right now, which allows him to manage, you know, playing 2 different positions. And you know, he's doing fine.
Also, Lee and Pruitt is the true freshman on the depth chart. Any other true freshmen you anticipate at this point?
I think that's probably it right now. Yeah.
Obviously, this week around town, with it being the first game, there's a lot of excitement from the pep rally to the family reunion, you know, this Saturday. For you as a coach, is this week have that added excitement to it with it being the first game?
Well, I think everybody's anxious to get started. You know, our players certainly are. And, you know, that like the old adage that, you know, every team in the country, all the players will tell you they're anxious to hit somebody other than themselves. And, you know, I understand that. So, I think the enthusiasm is there. You know, as coaches, you know, we've done it, you know, time and time and time again. And, yes, we're anxious to, you know, get on the field, but not so anxious that you overlook what your preparation really needs to be. So, you know, it goes back again to kind of taking it a moment at a time, an hour at a time, a day at a time, and really stay focused on that. And if you do that, then, you know, it's just a matter of trying to make sure that we've got all the marbles in the right slots and all the pieces together. And so you don't have, you know, a great deal of time to get overly excited one way or the other. I don't, anyway.